Welcome to the Saturday Slam and Jam here on the Athletic NBA Daily. On today's show, we're talking leftovers from Thunder Cavs, we're talking some NBA stats, and even some most improved. And then Will Guillory of The Athletic joins to talk about the New Orleans Pelicans and what's going on in New Orleans. But first, Al, tell me about the top stories this week.
Andrew, our top story this week was the heavyweight matchups we got, all involving the West #1 seed, the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Thunder had a trio of games this week against the top 3 seeds in the East. They picked up their 2 best wins of the season early in the week, beating the Knicks and the Celtics at home. The final heavyweight bout, though, was one of the games of the season so far. Thunder Cavs in Cleveland. The game had 30 lead changes, with both teams scoring over 120 points per possession on offense per clean the glass. In the end, it was the Cavs who pulled away at the end, winning the game 129-122, which ended the Thunder's 15-game winning streak. Now for the Cavs, they extended their own winning streak to 11 and are now on a 12-game winning streak after beating the Raptors on the second night of a back-to-back. The Cavs are 33-4. How did the Atlanta Hawks beat them twice in a row, consecutive games? How did that happen?
So weird.
We're now down to only 6 other teams in NBA history that have won at least 33 of their first 37.
Wow.
4 of those 6 won the NBA championship, and one was the 2016 Warriors, who were up 3-1 in the finals. Next up for the Cavs is the Pacers, who have won 4 in a row in 10 of their last 13. Tyrese Halliburton has been warming up over this 4-game winning streak, averaging 25 points and 11 assists per game, while shooting 49% from 3 on almost 8 attempts per game. The offense is back on track. They're top 10 again in cleaning glass, and they've crawled their way back up to the 7th spot in the East. They're only a game and a half out of the 4th seed, currently held by the Orlando Magic, who got some good news and some bad news this week. The bad news happened during a game against the Raptors last Friday night when Jalen Suggs went down with a non-contact back injury, one of the stranger injuries we've seen recently, and another blow to this Magic team that has somehow stayed afloat as all of their best players get injured one after another. Suggs was diagnosed with a low back strain. He's currently without a timetable to return. The good news is Paolo Banchero does have a timetable to return, as he is expected to return to the floor against the Bucks on Friday night. Now, the Bucks were one of a number of teams this week who decided it was time for some experimentation when it comes to the starting lineup. For the Bucks, it was moving Chris Middleton to the bench in an attempt to manage his minutes and injuries better. Another big change happened in Minnesota, where head coach Chris Finch read the papers and decided it was finally time to move Mike Conley to the bench in favor of Dante DiVincenzo. Was it the spark Minnesota needed? Well, they've now won 3 in a row since the change, with wins over the Clippers, Pelicans, and Magic. Their next game should be a good test against the Grizzlies on Saturday, who just got Ja Morant back after a 5-game absence. The Wolves are now 20-17, only a half game back of the Lakers for the 6th seed. Another team that is trying anything is the Phoenix Suns, who decided to bring Bradley Beal and Yusuf Nurkic off the bench, or just DNP Nurk. The immediate returns haven't been quite as good as the Wolves, though they are 2-1 in their last 3. The only problem is that one was an embarrassing loss to the Hornets, who were on a 10-game losing streak coming into the game. Do the Suns need bigger changes? Maybe someone like, I don't know, Jimmy Butler? This week in the Jimmy Butler saga, Butler was suspended for 7 games by the Heat for conduct detrimental to the team. Meanwhile, just a few days after getting reports that Jimmy was open to, quote, anywhere but Miami, we got new reports from Chris Haynes that actually teams like the Bucks and Grizzlies were told don't trade for Jimmy. Apparently, the only team Butler really wants to go to is the Suns, because they are the only team willing to give him this big extension this summer. The only problem is the Suns would need to convince both Bradley Beal to waive his no-trade clause and the Miami Heat to take probably the worst contract in the league. Yikes. Will it work? Probably not, but maybe, and we've got a month until the deadline, so why not spend a few weeks talking about it? Finally, some quick hitters. The Bulls announced they'd be retiring Derrick Rose's jersey next season. Zion Williamson returned from a hamstring injury that has kept him out most of the season, threw down a sick dunk in a loss to the Wolves. Trae Young hit a game winner from beyond half court in a game against the Jazz, and the Detroit Pistons became a 500 team for the first time in 434 days. Those were the top stories this week, Andrew.
Amazing week of basketball. Successful week of basketball for the NBA, seeing the clash of the Titans. So it was pretty cool getting to watch that. More on that later. Al, let's move to our favorite things. Our first one is our favorite quote of the week. Mine comes from one of those Titans, Jared Allen. Jared Allen has been talking about ethical basketball, and someone asked him post-game, like, what does ethical basketball mean? Tell us what that means. And he just smiled with the cheesiest smile ever and said, farm-raised, non-GMO, organic, free-range, ethical basketball. Alex, Jared Allen is one of the most pure, bona fide dorks of the NBA. This dude was giggling so hard at his own horrible joke after this. It's just almost too pure. He's one of the best centers of the game, a guy that I think should make his second All-Star team this year, but that dude is a certified dorkosaurus. That Jared Allen is such a big dork, and there's something awesome about it because he marches to the beat of his own drum, man. That guy is pretty awesome, and it's just like these weird moments like this for Jared Allen that is not what you'll see in every locker room. I'll tell you that. Yeah,
and there was a great quote, just like perplexed Kenny Atkinson when they asked him about ethical basketball. He had no idea what they were talking about. It's very funny that term has survived because I remember it starting with the Chris Paul Suns. I feel like that was the origin. I remember the Timeline podcast in particular, like they made ethical basketball like hats or shirts or something like that.
Yeah.
But it has survived now for like 5 years, keeping up. My quote is from the GOAT, Joe Mazzula, quote, "That's a coin," in response to Brandon Jennings calling Jason Tatum soft. Now, "That's a coin" is a reference to an interview Mazzula had done earlier this season on a local Boston radio show where he said, quote, "What if we all walked around with like 5 coins, right? And at any point in time, you can just hand one out and you just challenge a guy to like combat. If you do pull a coin on a guy and he beats you up, like that's your fault. You've got to either train harder or pick and choose your coins better." Listen, Andrew, there's been a lot of guys in NBA history who are good quotes. No one puts words together the way that Joe Mazzula does. He says things I've never heard in my life. And I'm sure people will eventually get sick of his shtick. They'll get sick of his quotes. Maybe they already have. I will never, Andrew. He has a beautiful mind. And "That's a coin" is just another example of that beautiful mind. I love Joe Mazzula.
It's so ridiculous. He's so great.
So that brings us to our favorite stat of the week. And my favorite stat this week is really just an excuse to talk about a player. So among players who average at least 4 transition plays per game, the player scoring the highest points per possession, arguably the best transition player in the NBA this season, is Zack LaVine.
Zack LaVine
is scoring 1.34 points per transition play. Now, to put that into context, since the NBA started tracking individual play types, this was like, they've been doing it for about like 8 years. The only player who has scored more than 1.34 points per transition play on that kind of volume was 2017 Kevin Durant. KD, in his first season as a Warrior on one of the greatest teams in NBA history, is number 1, and number 2 is Zack LaVine on this year's Chicago Bulls. If we still had a Comeback Player of the Year award, it'd be really hard to ignore LaVine's case because he hasn't just come back. He is dominating. And this week was his best he's been all season. He scored 30 plus in 4 straight games. I watched that Bulls Spurs game this week where he had 35, 10, and 8, helped bring the Bulls back from a 15-point deficit at the beginning of the 4th. He's having like a similar season to Tyler Hero in that he was also a player who a year ago was considered huge negative on his contract. No one was interested in trading for him. The rumored trade packages were just really sad to hear. And now, having one of his best seasons ever and one of the best seasons in transition in recent memory.
More like back LaVine.
That's right, Andrew.
He's got, after this year, he's got 2 years left. He's got $45.9 million in next season and then $48.9 as a player option the year after that. That's not awful.
It's not awful.
I just wonder, one, do the Bulls even want to trade him? I think is a question. I think that.
Oh, you think they might zig? Or would they be zagging?
I'm just telling you that the Bulls made that Josh Giddey trade. But before that, they hadn't made a trade in like 2 years. They just don't make trades.
Okay. So you're more relying on the inactivity of Karnisovas.
Yeah, I just think that they would rather stand pat and be like they fill the seats in the stadium. They're selling jerseys. It's all about the money there.
They are decently entertaining.
Yeah, they are entertaining and they're winning games. So, like, why? I just wonder if ownership is going to sign off on a Zack LaVine trade after he's had such a great comeback. Like, why would we trade him? It's going to be hard to get a player like him. I just wonder if you can trust management to do the right thing, which is trade Zack LaVine, which is to try to get a higher pick in this draft. To me, that's the right thing to do. Like, give yourself a direction. Like, get yourself out of the middle.
Well, they're probably banking on the Sixers eventually passing them. It just hasn't happened yet. I mean, the Sixers are still like only a game back, but you figure this would have happened already, that the Sixers had gotten back into play-in range, and they're still in the 11th spot.
Right. Alex, my stat of the week is I'm going to turn some trivia onto you. Okay.
Oh, no.
And I'm going to ask you for the best and worst catch and shoot three-point shooters on high volume. So this is guys that take 5 or more threes per game. I want to see how many of the top and bottom 5 volume catch and shoot three-point shooters that you can name. So let's start with the best. Alex, how many of the best can you name?
Top 5.
Top 5.
Well, I'll say, is Tyler Hero on it?
Tyler Hero is not in the top 5. He is in the top 9, I believe, though. He's one of the few that is shooting over 40%, but he's not in the top 5.
Okay. I'm thinking now back to that trivia question. What about Taurean Prince?
Not Taurean Prince, no.
He's probably not taking enough.
Yeah, he's not high volume. Yeah.
Okay. What about Norm Powell?
No, think about a team that takes a lot of threes.
Derek White.
Derek White's number 2 at 44% on almost 6 attempts.
Okay. Peyton Pritchard?
Cool. Peyton Pritchard's number 1 at 47.6% on 5.1 attempts per game.
I'm heating up.
Yeah,
Brandon Miller.
Not Brandon Miller. Think about a guy who's one of the best shooters ever, Al.
Steph Curry.
Not Steph Curry, no.
Klay Thompson. Damian Lillard.
Klay Thompson, 5.7 attempts, 42.9%. Now think about a guy who is in a ton of rumors. He's a rumor guy.
Oh, Cam Johnson.
Cam Johnson, 5.5 attempts per game, 44%. And then think about a guy who's much more known for defense. You would never, ever put him on this list, but the stats say put him on the list.
Defense never would be, but he has to take a lot of threes still.
Takes a lot of threes. It's 5 or more threes. This guy is actually taken 5 or more threes for consecutive years.
Okay. Man, I have no idea.
Luguentz Dort.
Oh my God.
Is 42.5% from 3 this season on 5 attempts per game. He is 5th on the list. That's right. That Dort Moonball is going in. Okay, now let's go to the worst. Guys that are taking 5 or more threes per game. These guys are all shooting 36% or worse from 3 on high volume.
Oh man, I'm such a positive guy, Andrew. You know, it's really hard to think of negatives.
There are a couple guys. There are a couple Boston guys on this list.
Drew Holiday.
No, he didn't take enough.
Jaylen Brown.
No.
What Boston? Tatum.
No. Porzingis is number 2.
Okay.
Second worst at 34.3% on 5 attempts per game.
Okay. What are some other hints?
A guy who is second in All-Star voting among guards.
LaMelo?
LaMelo is shooting 34.4% on 5.1 attempts.
That makes sense.
From 3. One guy changed his shooting motion this season to look all weird, and everybody was worried about him. Yeah, 35.7% on almost 6 attempts.
Although that kind of looked like Michael Kidd-Gilchrist shooting motion.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was trying to put that tiny window that he was trying to look through. And there's a guy another Celtic is on this list.
Another Celtic who's shooting at least 5?
Yeah.
Who have I not named on the Celtics? Al Horford?
Al Horford, he's 5th on the list at 5.2 attempts per game at 36%. And then you haven't gotten the very worst one. I'll reveal it. It's Keegan Murray is shooting 31.1% on 5.2 catch and shoot threes this season.
I would have never gotten there.
I know. It's funny because like if you were to make a bet before the season, who's going to shoot better on catch and shoot threes this season, Keegan Murray or Luguentz Dort? Who are you choosing? And I think everybody would choose Keegan Murray. He's shooting 31%. It is like by far the worst. Everybody else is like 34, 35%. It's not too bad. 31% is like, please stop shooting them. It's that bad.
Man, they need to get they need something, Andrew. I mean, this fall from grace for him. I mean, 41% his rookie season, set the rookie record, then 36% last year, and now down to 30%. Just overall, 30%, yeah.
It's shocking. I mean, it's kind of shocking because he's clearly a good shooter.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't tell him to stop shooting. Like I would tell him to keep shooting.
You wouldn't, Andrew?
The thing that's wild though is that he shoot. I personally would not. I would say keep shooting. I'm big on keep shooting. 33.8% from the corners even.
Wow.
Which is strange. He was 43% in his rookie season from the corners. Last year 32%, this year 33%. It's just weird.
That's crazy. And obviously it's very unfortunate because you bring in DeMar DeRozan. One of the reasons why you might feel confident about that fit is, okay, well, at least we got Keegan. He's going to bounce back from last year's 36%, get back over 40%.
I know. It is wild.
Yikes. Okay, now we're on to favorite player this week. My favorite player this week, Andrew. Domantas Sabonis. He's been on
another
fire.
King.
I got to talk about the Kings. He's been on fire during this Kings 5-game winning streak. He's averaging during those games 20, 15, and 7. I was lucky enough to leave that Kings Heat game on from Monday night. Despite the Kings being down 17 with only 8 minutes left, usually would turn it off, but had nothing else to do, watching it. Ended up going to double overtime in one of the more entertaining games I've watched this season. Kings won, and Sabonis was a beast. He put up a 21, 18, and 10 line with 3 blocks and 2 3-pointers, a couple stats you usually don't associate with Domantas Sabonis. And one of those 3 blocks was particularly entertaining because of what happened right before. So it was a play where Terry Rozier gets a pass underneath the basket. Kings rookie Devin Carter, who's back from injury, very exciting, he jumps from behind to swat the layup attempt that he assumes is coming, but Rozier ducks instead of jumping, and Carter completely hurdles Rozier, barely touching him at all. Rozier avoids this massive collision, then he goes up and immediately gets swatted by Sabonis. It was a very funny play. It was a great game. It was It's been nice seeing this Kings team finally get a little juice because there truly is nothing like a good Kings home game in that late TV slot where you're the only one up in the house. Everyone's gone to bed and you're just sitting there watching Kings basketball. And listen, maybe it is Doug Christie. Maybe he's working some magic. You can't ignore that he is giving Keon Ellis minutes consistently, 30 plus per night. Maybe that is a part of it. But also, this newfound juice may just be their end of game luck finally turning in their favor. They were 6-13 in clutch games under Mike Brown this season. They're now 3-0 with Doug Christie in those same games. So regardless, Sabonis has been great. He's been balling. The Kings, they're making a play-in push, Andrew. Maybe all is not lost. Maybe there's still a little bit of hope left for these Kings.
It helps that the other Pacific Division teams have their times of struggle as well.
Should we have taken them last week, Andrew? I think they were plus 2,000 to win the division.
Should have bet our mortgage on the Kings.
Wait, let me see how far they are behind. I guess it's the Lakers. They're only 2.5 back from the Lakers.
Isn't that feel just insane?
Division. It does.
Yeah, they passed Phoenix. Like it's wild. It felt like they were hopeless.
Huh.
Yeah,
there's rumors they're interested in Cam Johnson, who he is doing what you would expect Keegan Murray to be doing this year as just this like tall shooter, knocking down like 45% of his shots or whatever.
Yeah, totally. Al, my player this week happens to have the best odds at winning the most improved player according to BetMGM. Shout out to BetMGM for the line of the week this week at a plus 150. Cade Cunningham is favored to win most improved. Next, Evan Mobley, Tyler Hero, Jalen Johnson, Norman Powell on this list at a plus 1300. Victor Wembanyama, Jalen Williams, Dyson Daniels, and Austin Reeves sneaking in there at a plus 3,000. Wouldn't bet that one. But the reason is that part of the reason that Cade is on here is that the Pistons are good now. Like they're decent. They're 8-2 in their last 10 games, Al, with Cade averaging 25, 5, and 8, shooting 45, 35, 80%. He's been very good. And the Pistons themselves have picked it up. In the last 10 games, Al, they're 8th in net rating. They're 8th in offense and 10th in defense. And a lot of it is the leadership of Cade Cunningham. And in fact, Cade, this is kind of a crazy stat, he leads the league in most games with 5 rebounds and 5 assists per game this season with 29.
It seems impossible. You would think it would have to be Jokic.
I know.
Not Jokic.
I know. And maybe StatMuse is just telling me lies, but that to me it was wild. Cade has been very, very good for this team. He is providing the leadership necessary for this roster. He wants to be the guy. Like, he's continually like beating that drum that he wants to be the guy. He wants to be the one to help make this team better and get this team back to the playoffs. And you can see it happening. Like, he's going to be an all-star, or at least he should definitely be an all-star reserve in the Eastern Conference. And it felt like they were so far away. When you looked at what the Pistons were last year, you just thought, boy, like, how are they possibly going to get there? They won 14 games last season, which was the franchise low. And you thought they're so far away. But to be sitting at 19-19 right now, they lost to the Warriors. And in fact, I don't know if you saw this play. Cade gave them a chance to get a shot at the end of this game with what the officials didn't even see it, but he threw the ball and it nicked the rim before it hit the backboard. Awesome. And he gave them a shot to win this game. They didn't end up winning the game, but they were super competitive against a very desperate Golden State Warriors team. But just to be competitive night in, night out, it has been so long since we've seen competitive basketball out of the Detroit Pistons, and they're finally showing it, and it's through the leadership of Cade Cunningham, who's been on a heater lately, and you're getting a lot from even like the spot-up shooting of Malik Beasley has been super helpful. Like Isaiah Stewart, I think, has been super helpful on the defensive end. You finally got Asar Thompson back, and Asar has been just a maniac recently. A lot of good things happening in Detroit right now, and they're just like a normal team. Like, it's just good to see a normal team in Detroit.
And as much credit as we're giving, the bump from JB Bickerstaff to Kenny Atkinson in Cleveland, the bump from Monty Williams to JB Bickerstaff in Detroit has also been massive. I mean, because you still look over this Detroit roster, and especially with Jaden Ivey out, it's still not like blowing you away. Okay, it's not like they've made some massive changes that you expect them to be significantly better. But Malik Beasley shooting 39% on almost 10 3-point attempts per game. Like, that's the type of shooter they were missing. That's the type of shooter a lot of teams are missing. That is super high volume. Yeah, Cade has been great. And that top 4 for that most improved player, Cade, Evan Mobley, Tyler Hero, Jalen Johnson, that is a really strong class for a most improved player. Like, all those guys are really good. I honestly might lean Tyler Hero just because I kind of expected the jump from those other 3 guys.
Sure.
And I did not see this coming for Tyler Hero. Similar to the argument last year for Kobe White, where I just didn't see it coming. And so I would rather reward that. Cade, he started really getting better in the second half of last season. And you felt like if they can just get a normal team around him, he'll be good. And that has happened. So I don't know how much he definitely has improved. There still are things like, his finishing at the rim, still an issue. His inability to get the line as much as you would think. And I know Pistons fans that's like an ongoing thing where they're annoyed that Cade can't get calls. But there's still these like obvious things he can improve in his game. So there's more areas for him to get better. I might go with Tyler Hero, but all 4 of those guys are great options.
Yeah, the passing to me, and just like the playmaking in general from him this season. Yeah. I mean, for him to almost be averaging 10 assists per game is a huge deal for this team.
And his rebounding has bounced back too, because he was under 5 last year and is now almost at 7.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's in year 4 of his career. I'm totally cool with it being a year 4 guy for most improved, because I do think that people thought that he maybe like stagnated even last year. Yeah. And so for him to get to this point is great. And I think the hardest thing is to just pull this team up from the very bottom. You know, they were there, and it seemed a little bit hopeless. And so it's just nice to see some hope there. And a team that could make, like, you could easily see them making the play-in, you know, in the Eastern Conference, and I kind of expect them to. And just the chance to play in a meaningful basketball game for the Pistons is a big deal. So shout out to Cade Cunningham.
So that brings us to our final favorite thing of the week, and it is our favorite moment. And for the first time ever, we have decided we had the same favorite moment, which was actually a game our favorite team lost, but it was one of the games of the season, and it was Cavs Thunder on Wednesday night, a game that was perfectly set up. I mean, you don't want to give the NBA too much credit because they kind of lucked into this, but the fact that these two teams, you know, one on a 15-game winning streak, one on a 10-game winning streak, both coming off of 2 days rest. And I think that was the important part, because you saw how good those offenses were in that game. I think Cleaning the Glass had them both at 122 points per possession or better.
Yeah, that's wild.
It was an awesome game because as good as those offenses were, it wasn't like the defenses were terrible. Like the defenses were playing well. Like those are two really good defensive teams, but the offenses were just clicking. And the Cavs especially, I mean, their ball movement really threw OKC off in a way I haven't seen a lot of teams do. It was just an awesome game and an awesome showcase for a non-LeBron, non-Steph, non-KD matchup in the NBA, you know? And I'm so glad it fell on a Wednesday night on ESPN, like a big platform for that game. Like those are the types of games you have to market. And I do think the NBA did a good job. You know, like they were like tweeting about that game, you know, saying, you know, here are the top 25 reasons to watch Cavs Thunder tonight. Like they were pushing that game. We need to see more of that. And man, if we could ever get to a point where we could have more games on 2 days rest, I just think it would make for such a better league. Like the games would be so good instead of all these, you know, like 4 games in 5 nights, second night of a back-to-back, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it really worked out in that way. And like the viewers showed up too. The NBA Communications sent out a tweet earlier today that they had 1.87 million viewers on Wednesday night. It's up 20% in a comparable window from last year. So it just like they got the viewers that they wanted. It's good to see that. Really, the Cavs, certainly the way they executed down the stretch of the fourth quarter was amazing. But just like watching that third quarter was just really something of beauty. Both teams it was highly competitive. The shot making was incredible. The Thunder won the quarter 43-41, and both teams were shooting over 50%. The Thunder almost shot 70%. The Cavs almost shot 60% in that quarter. And it wasn't just like them running up and down. It was like highly competitive, good shot making, just gritty play. Jared Allen was 4 of 5 in that quarter. He was amazing. J-Dub had 10 points, 4 assists, a rebound, 2 steals in that quarter. I thought he was spectacular. It was just really cool to see two teams go at it that you're like, oh, okay, I can see this being a finals matchup, or you can see how both these teams are going to be uber competitive come playoff time. And it's just good to see those kind of matchups in the regular season, because oftentimes, you know, I watch a lot of NBA basketball, and there's a lot of games that you're just like, man, like the competition level isn't up to snuff. But this was like both teams desperately wanted to win this one. The Cavs won it fair and square, and I cannot wait to see the rematch next week. That's the cool part about it, is like both teams get time to prepare. I think obviously Donovan Mitchell wants another crack at the Thunder, I would assume, after only scoring 11 points in this game. I think that Shea, while he had the stats, I don't think anybody would say this is one of Shea's best performances, even though he had 31, 5, and 4. I think that like, the turnovers were a lot for them. 13 is a lot of turnovers for the Thunder. The fact that they had 4 more turnovers and steals is pretty unusual for this team this season. And so I think that both teams want another crack, and it's great that it's just a week apart, basically. Yeah, that we get to see both these teams play again. And so I think we get to see high-level coaching, high-level play from their stars, and just competitive basketball all the way through. So I'm excited to see the rematch. Something else that I'm excited to do, let's talk to our friend Will Guillory right after this quick break.
Andrew, it's time for the Wheel of Fandom, the weekly segment where we spin a wheel, it lands on a team, and we become fans of that team for the next week. Last week, the wheel landed on the New Orleans Pelicans, and for a brief moment, it looked like this might be the week that it all turned around for the Pels. They started off the week with 2 straight wins over the Wizards, their first 2-game win streak since the first 2 games of the season. Then we got news that Zion was coming back after an extended absence, and after a competitive loss to the Wolves, things weren't looking so bad. But then the Pelicans had one of their worst losses of the season on Wednesday night when they lost at home to the Portland Trailblazers 119-100. The Blazers, who have a bottom 5 offense and bottom 5 defense, scored 75 points in the first half while holding the Pelicans to only 42 first half points. New Orleans is now 7-31, 15th in the West. According to Cleaning the Glass, the Pelicans have the 29th ranked offense and 29th ranked defense. Andrew, if our favorite team is the Pelicans, may God have mercy on our souls. Who is our guest?
Oh, it's Will Guillory back again. Been on Slam and Jam many, many times. Pelicans beat writer at The Athletic. Will, I won't even ask you how you're doing because I know it's terrible.
No, what's funny is I was at the arena last night. I was joking with a buddy of mine, telling him that I was going to be on the show. And I was like, yeah, man, I get to go on the show. And it's like, these guys are lucky because they chose the best week ever to be Pelican super fans. You got to see Zion come back. You got to see CJ score 50.
CJ,
I know.
We've been suffering through all of these losses, and you guys just come through and get to see great basketball, and then that happened last night. So you got the full Pelicans experience. You got to see Zion be great. You got to see 8 people out and them lose by 30. So it was the complete experience.
We got socked in the mouth with the Jeremiah Robinson Earl experience. It was just wild. So Will, everyone knows about the injuries and the effect that they've had on this Pelican season. With that said, should they really be this bad? 20 of their 31 losses are by double digits. Their point differential is only better than the Wizards. Why is this team so bad?
Yeah, I think, in short, no, there's no way they should be this bad. I think, I kind of break the season up into segments because, earlier in the season around November, that's when literally everybody was out. And it was like the starting lineup was like Brandon Ingram, Brandon Boston, Jeremiah Robinson, Earl. Like it was literally Brandon Ingram and a bunch of G Leaguers. And they were really bad during that time, but they would get a win like here and there. And then it got to the point where DeJounte Murray came back, CJ McCollum came back, Herb Jones came back, Trey Murphy came back. So it looked like night to night they were able to put a legit starting 5 out there, multiple guys making like $20 million a year. And it felt like they got worse during that time. Like they were playing probably their worst basketball during that time. That's when DeJounte Murray, had back-to-back games of career highs and turnovers. Trey Murphy was going through it. Herb Jones' shooting was down. And I think that's when it was like, man, this is really bad. Because you kind of look at November like, okay, once they get past this, they'll be able to figure it out a little bit. But that's when it got really, really bad. And I think they've kind of ticked up a little bit. Like we've joked about, it's great to have back-to-back games against the Wizards. That's a good way to kind of pick up morale. But yeah, I think it's been much worse than I expected it to be, particularly when they got most of these guys back, because this is the team that is going to be moving forward, right? You're going to have DeJounte, you're going to have Trey Murphy, Herb Jones. With Z, of course, you always got to deal with the questions about his injuries, but these are the guys they've invested in long term, and it just hasn't looked very good early on. Maybe it gets better over time with, guys get to build some chemistry. DeJounte Murray's, going through some stuff right now, but it's been really disappointing, December on, just how much they've struggled with, most of their main guys.
So this season, it feels like a lost cause at 7-31, but they still have to play 44 more games. How do you anticipate?
Sounds like so many.
It does sound like a lot. How do you anticipate this franchise navigating the second half of the season? Like, do you expect Willie Green to remain as head coach? Do you think David Griffin's going to survive this? How will they approach this second half?
Well, I think the number one thing is what you guys saw this week is them getting Zion Williamson back, right? Above all, that's the main priority, is getting him on the court, seeing if he can last the rest of the season, how good he plays with this core. I think David Griffin, I would bet he's probably going to stick around. I think they liked a lot of the stuff he's done, with outside of Zion Williamson, drafting Trey Murphy, drafting Herb Jones, finding a bunch of these, supporting cast guys. I think, and he's done a pretty good job as far as finding people under him and doing doing a lot of little stuff that they felt like wasn't getting done with Dell Demps. But I think Willie Green is going to be the big question during the second half of the season, just because, like we said, he's had to deal with so much injury, bad luck during the first half of the season. I think it was tough for anybody to really look at, the job he was doing and say, man, this guy's the reason that they're losing these games. But I think you got to be able to build on something during the second half of the season. You got to be able to have, more games like they had against the Wizards and less like they had against the Blazers, with Zion out there, with these guys figuring something out. I think, if it continues on the trend that they're on right now, I would bet Willie Green won't be there next year. They'll probably end up going in a different direction. But I think they're going to try to give him a chance. They want to believe in Willie Green. I think they one of the reasons they hired him was they wanted to invest in a young coach and have him be there long term. That's something that this ownership really believes in. But I think it's really tough when you're this bad, when you got, what they felt like was a talented roster.
Yeah.
So we're almost in trade season, and the Pelicans have a lot to think about when it comes to Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum. Mm-hmm. If only one of those players are traded by the deadline, who do you think it is?
My bet would be probably BI. I think that's the guy I've consistently said is the most likely to get traded. Mm-hmm. I think, just overall, I've been one of the guys that's been very skeptical when it comes to these big money guys getting traded before the deadline, whether it's BI or Jimmy Butler, or you can go down the list. I think, with these new, CBA rules, it's just really difficult for some of these teams to make moves in season and avoid the apron, kind of tie their hands down to some of these guys. And I think it's just easier to be a little bit more flexible during the off season. But I think with BI, my bet was, once we get closer to the deadline around February, I'm thinking that at the very least somebody will jump in and say, hey, we'll pick this guy up for a rental to make a run in the playoffs. We'll see what it looks like in the offseason. Just because I think he's getting closer to getting healthier. He's been doing some stuff on the court lately. I think his hope would be to obviously get back on the court and show that he can play and kind of, show some of the teams out there that he's worth trade before the deadline. But I think, man, it's just tough right now, around the league, just because nobody has cap space in the off season. And I recently, did a back and forth with our guy John out in Minnesota about, the big question with this new CBA is, how much is a Brandon Ingram worth if he's not a max player, right? We can look now and say, all right, the Brandon Ingrams, the Julius Randles of the world, they're probably not max guys if that pushes you into the second apron. So if they're not, then what are they? How much should you be paying these guys? And I think, it's a real big question right now that a lot of people are having a tough time answering. And I think it's particularly tough for those guys because they're sitting around thinking, hey, I've done this. I got all-star on my resume. I've had big playoff moments. Why are guys treat me like I'm unwanted? And I think a lot of it is just the uncertainty about what the future is going to look like for these guys. And I think that's what makes it really tough for the Pels right now, trying to figure out how they're going to handle this.
Yeah. Are there any fake trades that people keep coming back to, like Pelicans fans do, or targets, that Pelicans fans have in mind?
I think the two big ones that I've heard, I would say San Antonio is a team I think a lot of people are looking at saying, okay, when is San Antonio going to make that move to get Wemby's co-star in there? Mm-hmm. Obviously, we've heard about, De'Aaron Fox being a possibility. People throwing Jimmy Butler out there. I think that might be a little bit far-fetched, but I think we all kind of see they're going to make a move at some point. I don't know if it'll be as early as this season, but they got to get a true number two next to Wemby if they're going to be a legit playoff team. And I think also another interesting one is maybe Orlando. I've heard some whispers about. I think, obviously Miami is lurking with the Jimmy Butler thing. I think there are a few teams out there, but I think the big question is which one of these teams are going to be willing to sign him to the next contract. I think is going to be the big question. We heard over the summer that Utah was a team that was interested in him, but BI wasn't interested in signing another contract with Utah. So they kind of backed off at that point. So I think that's going to, dictate a lot of this is where can he go where he can feel like he's a part of a winning situation and want to sign that next contract. And also the Pels get some type of value for him in return. I would bet it probably comes all the way down to the deadline, just to get all of those dots to line up.
Yeah. What would be the return from Orlando? What's the thought there?
Man, I think, probably you would want to throw in maybe some, I would say contract wise, I would think Jonathan Isaac would have to be in there, maybe a Cole Anthony, something like that. I doubt a Kentavious Caldwell Pope will be involved just because he's got a few more years left on that contract. I think that one might be a little bit more far-fetched just because I don't know if they want to invest that amount of money in a B.I., Franz, Paolo trio because it feels a little redundant. But I mean, that's kind of the point I'm making overall. I think the options are very limited for BI, where he can go and a team will be willing to invest in him and he can feel like I can win here. I just don't think there are a whole lot of options out there for him right now. And I think maybe there'll be some more clarity as, we get closer to February and the team pops up and says, all right, we've got a legit chance if we trade for a BI. But the list looks pretty short right now.
Do you think the trade interest or trade market for CJ would be significantly better than BI? Or is it kind of a similar scenario?
I think CJ will probably be a little less just because he's got another year left on his contract at $30 million, and that's the any team trading for him is like, okay, how open are we to having CJ on our books at $30 million next year? A team I've kind of looked at, with CJ that makes some sense in my head is like a Houston where they can kind of add that money to their books and still feel like, they can keep most of their young guys. And then, basically the same thing they're doing with Fred VanVleet this year is like, okay, we could remove that contract and be able to spend more money on our core guys and kind of do the same thing with CJ next year. But I think it'll be that type of move where a team's looking to add that one veteran piece to push them over. But I think, having that extra year on CJ contract makes it a little tougher. I think him playing as well as he has obviously kind of, makes it a little bit more appealing for some of these teams to be like, hey, this dude just dropped 50 a couple of days ago. He can obviously contribute at a high level. But it's just about the finances of making these contracts work. So you're not kind of tying your hands in the way you build out the rest of your roster.
So one bright spot for Pelicans fans is getting to see their first-round pick, Yves Missi, get extended run this season. He's played the second most minutes of any 2024 draft pick. What are a couple of his best qualities on the court, and then what are some obvious areas of development?
Man, I tell you, just in general, I would say activity. He plays extremely hard on a nightly basis, and he's a great athlete. So just having him flying around the way he does, he's already an excellent offensive rebounder. I think he's one of the better offensive rebounders in the league. Day one, soon as he stepped in, I think he's very versatile defensively. Where I think when they had Jonas Valanciunas, they were a very drop heavy team, and that can limit you in certain matchups. And I think Missy, he could play drop, he can step up, he can switch. I think that's one of the things they really liked about him going into the draft, being able to play those different defensive coverages. And I think, hearing from people around the team, what they've all talked about is just his IQ for the game, which was a little bit surprising how quickly he picks up things and how they're able to throw a lot on his plate. And they don't have to go over things, with him repeatedly, which is super impressive. I mean, this guy just started playing basketball when he was like 15, 16 years old. Mm-hmm. So he's still learning the game in a lot of ways. And they feel like, there's no hesitation about, bringing him along quickly and teaching him all of these different things because he picks it up really well. So I think that's really impressive. I think the one thing for him is, a lot of these centers in today's NBA, you got to be very fluid in the dribble handoff game, being able to handle the ball, make those backdoor passes, being comfortable on the perimeter, moving around with the ball. And I think he's decent with that right now, but I think he'll get better over time. I think he's comfortable, facing the basket and doing stuff with the ball. But I think, just getting more experience doing that and making the right decisions, I think that'll be the next step in his game because they like, him being involved in that way on offense. They don't think he's a guy that they're just going to hide in the dunker spot. He can do some stuff at the top of the key, but I think it's just about getting more experience with that and kind of cutting out some of those mistakes.
So for a lot of Pelicans fans, the rest of the season will be spent on Tankathon, just spinning away.
Yes, it is. Just
saying prayers for that number one pick.
Listen, I've been having it open during games. That's just my thing now. During again, like whenever there's another air ball, I just click the randomizer one more time and just see where it lands.
So if we assume that the Pelicans start next season with Zion, DeJounte, Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, and Missi, what kind of player do you think they'll be looking for in this draft?
That's been one of the more interesting things about looking at this draft because there are so many, very different types of players at the top of the draft. I think, we've heard that, everybody basically loves all of these guys at the top of the draft, but I think Cooper Flagg is very different from Ace Bailey, who's very different from Dylan Harper, who's very different from VJ Edgecombe. So I think I look at a lot of these guys and say, like you're saying, like, how does it fit when you feel like you kind of have an idea of what the starting five is going to look like next year? I think for me, the guy that I probably like the most would be Dylan Harper. Just kind of having that point guard you can build around next to Zion Williamson. We can get into DeJounte Murray. I think overall it's been a pretty disappointing experience up to this point. And some of that, was out of his, not his fault with the breaking his hand the first game of the season. He's got some stuff going on off the court. But I think, in today's league, you got to have an elite level guard to be able to compete with some of these top teams. And I just feel like nights tonight, the Pels are lacking in that area. And I think being able to take that home run swing with a guy like Dylan Harper and hoping that's a guy you can build with next to Zion Williamson, I think will make a lot of sense. And I think a guy like Ace Bailey might be a little bit more risky when you already have a Herb Jones and a Trey Murphy. I'm really a big fan of Dylan Harper, and I think VJ Edgecombe is another guy I'm really interested in with the Pels. Another defensive guy, great athlete, great motor. I think he's a guy that would really just fit in. And I think that's something that the Pels, it's crazy to say a team that might, lose 50, 60 games this year. They need a guy that's just step in and fit in instead of being a guy that's going to come in and try to be an all-star. And I think VJ Edgecombe would be really good with the rest of these guys to kind of bring the energy that they need next to Herb Jones. But to be real, any of these guys would be great. You add any of these guys at the top of the draft and you feel pretty good about what you could do going forward.
Yeah. They get to tank without having a tanking quality team, which is like, it's a pretty unique opportunity. Like, it really doesn't happen like this for many teams, but they really need to, if they do move on and get a new coach, like, they've got to nail that hire. We've seen in Cleveland what nailing that hire can mean for your team. And so, like, they have to nail that hire. Also, if you get VJ Edgecombe, third VJ in the history of the NBA. By the way, I was looking this up the other day. I was like, is there another VJ to ever play in the NBA? Didn't know who the guys were. VJ King was one of them. Don't know who these guys are. Sorry.
Will,
I didn't know we could get to the trivia this early, but I love it.
Will, thank you for answering all of our Pelicans questions. But it is now time to play Andrew versus the Beat, our weekly trivia show where Andrew goes head to head against an NBA beat writer. Will, you're a pro at this. You've probably done this like 5 times already.
And I feel like every time we do it, it's very dramatic. The matchups between
it is. It always is. With Will.
It always comes down to
I'm a little stressed out. Starting to sweat a little bit.
Well, for any first-time listeners, I've come up with 8 questions about the Pelicans. Will's going to give me a number between 1 and 8. It will correspond to a question. Some are easy, some are hard. If Will gets it right, he'll get at least 2 points. If he gets it wrong, Andrew will have a chance to steal for 1, and we'll go back and forth until all the questions have been asked and answered. So, Will, to start us off, I just need a number between 1 and 8.
As always, I got to start off with number 7. Shout out to the 7 ward.
Okay. This question is either going to be super easy or impossible. So we'll see. Question number 7. DeJounte Murray averages over 9 pick-and-roll ball handler possessions per game. In those possessions, Murray is generating 0.74 points per possession, which is not good. Since NBA.com started tracking pick-and-roll data in the 2015-16 season, only one player has been worse in the pick-and-roll as a ball handler on that many possessions per game. You're going to guess that player, but I'm going to give you 4 hints to help you out. Hint number 1, it was the 2015-16 season. Hint number 2, the player was an Eastern Conference All-Star that season, one of 5 All-Star appearances in his career. Hint number 3, he made an all-defensive team. And hint number 4, this player drank 2 hot chocolates from McDonald's every day.
Every day.
First it said before each game, but then I did some more research, and it was every day, apparently.
Every day. It's a lot of hot chocolate.
No days off when it comes to these hot chocolates.
No, it's off for the hot chocolate.
Oh, wow. 15-16 All-Star game. Made 5 All-Stars. So this is a guy that's really good.
This is a very good player.
Yeah, this is a very good basketball player.
Eastern
Made
Conference.
offensive team.
Eastern Conference guard. God, this is really
This is really tough. Oh man, I'm just drawing a complete blank. I can't even lie to you. I'm going to go with. Oh, this is going to be completely off. I'll just say Victor Oladipo. I know he didn't make that many All-Star games, but that's the only name that's popping into my head.
That is incorrect. Andrew, do you have a guess?
I don't think this guy made that many All-Star games either. Kyle Lowry.
That is also incorrect. Now, one of my other hints I was going to add, I didn't know if it would give it away. The last team he played for was the Clippers. Does that help at all? Anything?
The last team he played for was the Clippers.
Yeah.
Rondo?
It was
John Wall?
It was John Wall. That's correct, Andrew. You don't get the points, but now you know that he drank 2 hot chocolates from McDonald's.
Drink 2 hot
every
chocolates
day.
every day. Wow. Maybe that was
Andrew,
wrong
the
of
board is
me
yours.
to think that the hot chocolate would be going to Kyle Lowry's butt. Okay, number 1.
Question number 1. The last time New Orleans started off a season this poorly was the 04-05 season when they started 6-32.
Oh my gosh.
Who were the top 2 in 3-pointers made for that team? And I did top 2 because I don't think you will get one of them, but you have a shot at one of them.
And 3-pointers made, in total 3-pointers made?
Yeah, top 2 for the 04-05, then the New Orleans Hornets.
05.
Yeah.
Okay. This. Wait, were they in Oklahoma City this year? 04, 05? Or was this the year after? The year after they were in OKC. I think maybe it was the year after.
I think this was the year before.
Yeah.
After?
Year before.
Yeah. Shoot. What about J.R. Smith?
There you go, Andrew. That's 1 point.
Oh.
That was the one I thought you'd have a chance at.
Yeah.
Any guesses for the other guy?
I think Baron Davis was on that team. Baron Davis?
Good guess. He was on the team, Andrew, but he didn't play enough games.
Dang.
Hit enough threes. Any guesses, Will? And I will tell you, this is the guy who led the team in 3-pointers made. It actually wasn't J.R. Smith.
Wow.
Maybe Rasul Butler?
Russell Butler, a good guess.
Great one.
But it was actually Dan Dickow.
Oh my God. I swear to God, I was going to say Dan Dickow before
Dan
you said J.R.
Dickow.
Smith.
He led a team
Wow.
in 3-pointers made.
God, I haven't thought about Dan Dickow in so long.
We were just talking about Dan Dickow at a game not that long ago. I'm so upset. I'm really upset. I can't
That would have
even
been an
lie to y'all.
incredible pull. Okay, Will, the board is yours.
Oh, I'm so upset right now. Let's go number 2.
Question number 2. Yves Missy has 52 blocks, which already puts him 4th for most blocks by a Pelicans rookie. Anthony Davis is obviously number 1 with 112 blocks. Which Pelicans rookies are 2nd and 3rd on that list for most blocks as a rookie? And you do get 1 point per correct answer.
Oh, wow. Most blocks as a rookie. Man. This is a good one. Maybe, I don't know if he played enough as a rookie, but maybe Jackson Hayes?
He was number 3 on the list.
Okay.
You get 1 point. Can you name who was number 2?
Number 2. Oh, man, big guys who are rookies. Maybe David West?
That is incorrect. Andrew, you have a chance to steal.
David West. Dude, I don't know. What about Hilton Armstrong?
Hilton Armstrong. What about Jason Smith?
What about
no.
Cedric Simmons?
Yes. Yes.
I figured I'd trip you up with this because it wasn't a big. It was Herb Jones.
Oh,
just a
dang
few
it.
years
I
ago.
thought about her. Dang it.
I wanted to say her, but I thought I was going to be wrong.
Man.
All right, the game is tied. Andrew, you have control of the board.
Number 3.
Question number 3. CJ McCollum tied a career high with 50 points in a game this week against the Wizards. There are only 3 players in New Orleans franchise history to score 50 points. Anthony Davis, CJ McCollum, and this player.
This feels like a trick question.
Dan Dickow.
Is it Dan Dickow?
It's Dan Dickow. That's the answer.
God. There's so many guys that you feel like probably definitely scored a lot for the Pelicans, but it's hard to imagine them actually scoring 50.
Right.
Shoot. Did Page somehow do it? Like, I don't know.
Andrew, that is incorrect. Will,
Okay.
do you know the answer?
God, I really hope so because I tweeted this during the game, so it's going to look
Oh.
really crazy if I get this wrong. But I believe the answer is Jamal Mashburn.
Will, that is correct. For 1 point.
Oh, MASH. That makes sense.
In a game
That makes
against
sense.
Memphis way back. He was actually in his 30-year-old season.
Yeah, I looked
His
at that
lone
box score
All-Star
not too long
season.
ago. That was the
Wow.
Pau Gasol Grizzlies.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, Will, you've taken the lead, and you have control of the board. 2-1.
Number 5, please.
Question number 5. According to Cleaning the Glass, I wish Andrew had gotten this question. I feel like Will's going to nail this. According to Cleaning the Glass, the Pelicans have the second worst offense in the league. The last time New Orleans offense was that bad was the 2011-2012 season. To get the points for this question, you just have to name 4 guys who were on that team.
Ooh.
11-12 Hornets.
So I'm not going to tell you if you get each one right. You're just going to rattle off 4 names, and at the end, I'll tell you they were all on this team.
Jeez Louise. So this was pre-Anthony Davis, is that right? Oh, God. The previously mentioned... No, I won't go there. Jeez.
I think I know who you were going to say.
Dan Dickow?
Dan Dickow is my answer. No, Dan Dickow is the answer. Jeez, this is sad that I don't remember one guy from the 2011-12 New Orleans Pelicans. I'm gonna go with my first mind. The previously mentioned Jason Smith, was he on that team?
Okay. I'm not going to tell you if they're on it or not until you give me 4 names because I don't want to give Andrew any hints.
Oh, I got you.
I like how you
that's
say my name there. I don't want to give Andrew any hints.
I'm gonna throw a name out there and say Gustavo Ayon.
Oh,
Okay.
Gustavo Ayon
All right.
was a name I
That's your
remember from that
your
era.
second guess?
Oh man!
shout out to the Basketball Jones for Gustavo Ayon.
Oh yeah, I was a big Gustavo Ayon guy. Man, I really don't remember any of these dudes. Let's go with
Yes, I think you do if you remember Gustavo Ayon.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. What are you talking about?
I'm gonna throw Brian Roberts out there as one, and I'm gonna throw
These are all such like deep cuts.
I'm telling you, these are the names that were going on around that era, and man, and I know this is wrong. I'm gonna just throw Tyreek Evans out there. I'm pretty sure that one's wrong.
Okay, well, you are wrong. Some of them may have been right, but not all 4. So, Andrew, can you get 4 names from the 2011-2012 Pelicans? Well, then Hornets.
I know Emeka Okafor is on that team.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure Eric Gordon was on this team.
Okay. It doesn't matter now, so I'm just going to tell you both those first 2 are correct. Can you get 2 more?
I think Trevor Ariza was on that team.
That is correct. Can you get one more name?
I don't know why I thought. Oh yeah, I'm thinking of a completely different team.
And I think Gustavo Ion is right.
Gustavo Ion is right, Andrew. You get the point.
Yes.
Now this is so you were doing great. Jason Smith was on the team. Gustavo Ion was on the team, but then you said Brian Roberts, and unfortunately he was on the next year's Hornets team.
Yes.
Yeah, so you're very close.
You're
Other
mixing up
names?
the Brian Roberts teams again, Will.
Come on.
There's a lot of names on this team. Jarrett Jack, Marco Bellinelli, Chris Kaman, Grievous Vasquez, Carl Landry, who got a 6th Man of the Year vote,
Carl
Al-Farouq
Landry.
Aminu, Xavier Henry, Thunder and Knicks legend Lance Thomas was on that team.
Yeah. Lance
all.
Thomas was on that team. I don't think I would have ever gotten that.
No, I wouldn't have either. Okay, we got a tie game. 2-2. 3 questions remaining. Andrew, board is yours.
God, that's one where I cannot believe I only got 1 point. 4.
All right, Yves Missy has scored 340 points this season, which is good for 7th among all rookies. We're going to name the 6 rookies who have scored more points than Yves Missy this season. So how this works, Andrew will give me a name, then Will give me a name, and we'll go back and forth till one of you stumbles. So all you need to tell me is a current rookie who has scored more points than Yves Missy.
More points than Yves Missy.
And I feel like this rookie class makes this question a lot harder.
This is really hard. This is really hard. I mean, Jared McCain, even though he's missed a ton of time, had to have scored more points, right?
He did, Andrew, but he was the closest. He was 6th
was he?
on the list. Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Living dangerously.
Okay.
Okay, Will, just need someone in the top 5.
I'm gonna go with the number 1 overall pick, Zachary Risochet.
He's number 2 on the list. Back to Andrew.
What about Tristan Da Silva? Is that a crazy name to say?
Andrew, that is a crazy name to say. That is incorrect. So, Will, you just have to give me one more name.
I was gonna throw out Bub Carrington.
Bub Carrington. No, wait, he should be on this list. Why is he not on this list? Hold on just a second.
Bub.
So the other names on this list, Jalen Wells. Yeah.
Oh, Jalen Wells.
Jalen Wells is number 1 overall.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Dang it.
He has, Bub Carrington scored 324 points. He must be 8th on the list.
Wow.
So you don't get the points. Also, Stephon Castle and Alex Sarr, 4th on the list in points.
Yeah, I thought about Sarr. Dang.
So this is exciting. 2 questions left. Will's control the board. Tie game, 2-2.
It's a defensive battle going on right now.
It is. It is. This is like a Pelicans game right now.
Number 8, please.
Question number 8. Despite being 25th in the league in 3-point attempts per game, the Pelicans are one of only 4 teams in the NBA that has 2 players taking more than 8 3-pointers per game. Kind of interesting. Who are the other 3 teams? And you get 1 point per correct answer. So these are teams in the NBA who have at least 2 players taking more than 8 threes per game.
2 players taking more than 8 threes per game. Number 1, I'll go with. Wow, this is tough because you think a lot of the top shooting guys, but how many of them have a second guy that attempts that many?
Mm-hmm.
Number 1, I'll go with the Warriors.
That is incorrect. Andrew, you have a chance to steal 3 points if you can get this question right.
Boston?
Boston is correct for 1 point.
They probably have more than that, I would guess.
Maybe.
Taking that many.
I'll look it up.
This is a really tough one. But this is so tough after Boston.
They do have 3. Can you name the 3 Celtics who take more than 8 threes per game?
Tatum, White, and Holiday, maybe.
Tatum, White, Peyton Pritchard.
Yeah.
Peyton Pritchard.
Pritchard. Yeah, Pritchard takes just a ton.
He's getting them up. All right, Andrew. There's 2 more. There are 2 more teams.
What about the Mavericks?
That is incorrect. Incorrect.
Dang.
So you do get 1
Seriously?
point. The other 2 answers. One you would have actually, if you think about it, it's obvious. The Hornets, because LaMelo and Brandon Miller, they're both taking like 11 over 11 per game.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And then the Clippers with I'm assuming it's Harden and Norm Powell.
Norm Powell. Right.
Norm is he's taking
having
them.
a year, man.
Okay, Andrew, this sets up a final question.
Woo,
if you get it correct, you've won the week. If you get it wrong, we go into sudden death. The question is, one of the players getting a shot in this weird Pelican season is Brandon Boston Jr. What is Brandon Boston Jr.'s career high in points? And you get to choose who answers first. You can make Will answer first, and then you go higher or lower, or you can answer first, and then Will go higher or lower.
This just feels impossible to know. I don't know. 28 points. Who knows? I have no idea.
All right, Andrew has set the bar at 28 points. Will, would you like to go higher or lower?
I'm going to go higher. I would have guessed 31 maybe.
So, Andrew, you were within 1 of the correct answer. And the correct answer was 27, which means Andrew wins the week.
Yes.
Wow.
Oh, man.
Clutch performance.
Another heartbreaker for Will.
Another heartbreaker for Will. My heart rate's at a 107 right now. Will, thanks so much for coming on the show. Please go check out all of Will's work at The Athletic. Will, we appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate you guys. It's official now. There's no way the Will can send you any lower than you've been the last 2 weeks. Congratulations, guys. It's only up from here.
That's right.
Fast forward now to y'all getting the Wizards on the Wiz.
We're going to get the Wizards and then we'll get the Wizards. All right, Andrew. Well, that was Pelicans week. Now, I did lie to you last week. We thought we were going to do 2 weeks of Pelicans. We don't have to do that. Okay.
We were very blessed to not have to do that.
We're actually going to have Sam Vecini come on next week, which means this week when I spin the wheel, this will be a 2-week team. So we're going to spin the wheel and see who we're going to be watching for 2 weeks. 2 entire weeks. And the Wheel of Fandom team this week is... You're not watching on YouTube. The little ticker was right on the border of Boston and Toronto. We almost got our 3rd bottom 5 team in a row. But by the slimmest of margins, we will be watching the Boston Celtics for the next 2 weeks.
I thought it did land on
too.
Toronto, actually. Then when it popped up Boston, I was like, okay, good. Okay, that's good. That's good. We get to watch a good team for the next 2 weeks. Whew. Okay. Please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and we will read it on the show. This one comes from Nick Boonstra, and he says, really slams my jams. 5 stars. I absolutely love the Saturday Slam and Jam. Not only are Alex and Andrew fun and knowledgeable individually, but the chemistry they have together is phenomenal, and it really makes the show what it is. Andrew versus the Beat is easily the highlight of my week. With that said, I'd love to know how Alex would feel about a fan-submitted question for the quiz. I'm a lifelong Celtics fan. He's a lifelong Celtics fan, Al. I don't know how... Listen, some people probably don't believe in how genuine the wheel is. It's extremely genuine. This is not just for Nick Boonstra, okay? I'm a lifelong Celtics fan, and I have a pet favorite stat that I'd love to send you in consideration for when the C's are made the face of the Wheel of Fandom. Holy smokes. I promise you this was not planned. He said, let us know. So thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. You can contact Andrew on Twitter or me on Blue Sky, and You would have.
Yeah.
Andrew will send you my email if he needs to, and that's fine.
Yeah, hit us up.
I was
and
about to reveal my email
set up with the
on
email.
the pod, which probably isn't a good idea.
Yeah. Don't do that. He's a shout out to the Daily Crew, Dave, S, and Zena. Clearly no ball and are my one-stop shop for keeping tabs on the league. Keep up the good work, everyone. Thank you so much for that review. That means a whole lot to us. Please be sure to leave those reviews and we'll read them on the show. If you want more content from Alex and I, go check out Down to Dunk. We are on every single Wednesday. If you want to hear a recap on the Thunder Cavs game, Alex and I did one for Down to Dunk on Wednesday night, so you can go check that out. Would really appreciate you guys listening to Down to Dunk on YouTube or Spotify or Apple or wherever you get your podcasts. Would really appreciate that. Hope you guys are doing great. Hope you guys enjoy the weekend and the basketball, and we'll talk to you guys again next week.